All right, everybody. Happy Black History Month. What's going on YouTube, social media platforms? We got it all Ohio cast. We got my man Tayo, we got my man Arion, and we're here to talk about the late great Jesse Jackson. My name is Mike, and I'm gonna go ahead and get the ball rolling. Go ahead and let us know how you feel about Jesse Jackson.
Oh yeah, he was BB born in Flint, Michigan, back in '81. He has done so much for the city of Flint when it comes down to the water crisis. He's also went to the Rosa Parks Transit Center in Detroit on National Voter Registration Day back in 16. He did the campaigns for Hillary Clinton. That's when Obama was president. Also, him holding a press conference during a Detroit game back in February of 2011 at the Palace of Auburn Hills. Him and Aretha Franklin, oh, great friends, and also her being a Michigan resident. We also look at you know different banquets he's been to and how much influence he's had, especially with Motown, Barry Gordy, um, you know, the Four Tops at the Greater Grace Temple in Detroit, Michigan in 2008. He's done a lot for the city of Michigan. My grandmother was a big fan of Jesse Jackson back in the day, but he never got credit for what really he's done. It was just he was there. But me being in my childhood, Reverend Jesse Jackson was everywhere trying to fight for equality, and especially um, supporting the mayor, for example, Mayor Bernero, and also the Michigan Senate Minority Leader Gretchen Whitmer. There was a protest he did in a Republican-controlled legislature passing back in 2012 in Lansing, Michigan. He's done uh, a lot of stuff back in Dearborn City Hall back in 2014. He's done a lot, for the city of Flint. Community activist Melissa Mays. Um, he's done a lot of work with the Legislative Black Caucus and the Concerned Pastors Group, and he led the march. A revolutionary. Flint Lives Matter is what he was big on. He spoke to a lot of residents back in the Metropolitan Baptist Tabernacle Church in Flint back in 2016. He's done a lot of stuff. And one thing about Reverend Jesse Jackson and how he's been so influential, um, being good friends with Al Sharpton and Bill Clinton, how he's collaborated with them. He was everywhere. Um, how he speak, that I know the last time he spoke was at the Fox Theater in Detroit back in 2023. He was speaking uh, about certain views when it comes to the election and also what he's done, where this world's coming to. None of his work would be taken granted for. I know that as a kid, he was always around the politics and making things better. And one thing about back in '88. Oh wow, yeah, he shook hands with George Bush, the president. Y'all remember Bush back in '88? No new taxes. Um, he was there to support Bush and work on civil rights for African Americans. So we're gonna miss him. I'm definitely gonna miss him. He was like uncle. He was like that uncle that was always there. His tears during the Obama election. It finally happened. That will be my lasting memory when he was in tears during that election. So he's done a lot of things in Flint, Michigan, my hometown, and that's all I have really. He's going to be missed, and may he rest in heaven because he deserves his flowers. So we're going to turn
Amen.
it to back to Mike.
Amen. Hey, that's a big cosign, man. What about you, Tayo?
Well, the Honorable Reverend Jesse Jackson, he he's owed more than the highest honors, for all of his accomplishments and what he did for the civil rights movement and what he did in under the tutelage of Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King. What he learned from Dr. Martin Luther King, what we all learned from Martin Luther King, and what we all learned from Jesse Jackson was kind of like it's like we got an extension of Martin Luther King's years after death, life after death. You know what I mean? Like when Martin Luther King passed away, it was such a hit to, you know, our community, not just our community, but the world. You know what I mean? The community of the humanity of the world, you know what I mean? And having peace in this world and in, you know, our experiences in America. And Jesse Jackson was a testament of, you know, kind of garnering that hope, you know, by means of driving action by going to these different companies and demanding that there be diversity, whether it be the smallest company in Columbus, Ohio, whether it be getting Mayor Michael Coleman in an office, you know what I mean, whether it be, you know, hiring and employing my father, you know what I mean, on the Rainbow Coalition when my father was a secretary for Reverend Jesse Jackson, excuse me, back in 1988, you know, when he was running for the Rainbow Coalition. And then in the 90s when he established Push in Chicago. And so all these different cities, you know, he came to North Carolina, you know, Jesse Jackson was a quarterback at North Carolina A&T. And, you know, he came out the South, you know what I mean? And, he went down to South Florida and was working with, you know, getting people, you know, out of Cuba that were held hostage down there and getting them to come to, you know, Miami and stuff, you know, on the wet dry policy. I know, Mike, you said before about, you know, the wet dry policy and all this stuff, but he actually was like rudimentary in like, not just rudimentary, but like fundamental in helping getting most of these bills passed by negotiations. We're talking to all these politicians and not just politicians, musicians, people, even like the common folk, you know, just when he came in contact with people just on the street, you know what I mean? Like he was accessible, you know what I mean? I noticed something that said Roland Martin said in his frame, which is now live, that, you know, Jesse Jackson was always on call. They say you can call the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he was hard to reach. He wasn't like one phone call away. But if you call Jesse Jackson's, you know, secretary, it was always like one phone call away. You know what I mean? From getting help. You know what I'm saying? And then like, you know, and then for the history books, you know, they're always going to keep it short and sweet. You know what I mean? But there's other things, you know what I mean, that like, you know, little things, you know, along the way that were like different fights and struggles that Justice Jackson had to go through with his coalition and like with like speech writers, you know, that were working for other people and rival politicians and rival companies that wanted to keep Coca-Cola in charge. And also, by the way, go back and look at Martin Luther King's mountaintop speech. Look at the whole 43 minutes of his last speech, and he names every corporation. Coca-Cola was up there, you know what I mean, and you know, Wonder Bread is up there. You look at Coca-Cola and Wonder Bread today, you know what I mean, and the only reason they even have diversity of part of their company is because of Reverend Jesse Jackson. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you know, the corporate headquarters is in Atlanta. You know what I mean? They didn't even want the corporate headquarters to be in Atlanta. It was going to be somewhere else. But you know, you know, he changed a lot of different things. You know what I mean? Wherever he went, he changed a lot of different things. You know what I'm saying? And that's one thing that, you know, even President Obama got elected on, was that change platform. You know what I mean? That real change platform, you know. And then on top of it, like, Jesse Jackson knew that if we were going to get anything done in this country, as far as like um, obtaining social and economical wealth, attaining social and economical wealth within the Black community, within the African community, and the Latin community, the Black and Brown community, the Asian community, all our communities, even the poor white communities. You know what I mean? Like it was, he made like every politician understand that they needed to do more uh, different types of political styles, more radical political styles. You know what I mean? And so I noticed that even like the politicians, like you look at the politicians back in the day, how much they changed after they met Jesse Jackson. Like their style of political frontier change. You know what I mean? You notice how they got votes, how they started talking to these people, how their speeches started changing. You know, it's all these little nitpick things, you know what I mean, that, you know, they kind of, you know, Jesse Jackson kind of just graced us with, you know what I mean? It was kind of like we was getting a second chance of hearing Martin Luther King speak without actually hearing Martin Luther King speak. It was actually like, you know, through him, you know, like basically like you take his message and it's through the eyes and the mouth of Jesse Jackson. And then when Jesse Jackson speaks it to us, it reverberates back to us like as you know, as our voice too is being heard. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, we got under 4 minutes left or whatever. And in my opinion, I have the most respect for Jesse Jackson. I feel that he is looked at as a polarizing figure. And not from my perspective, I feel that anyone who speaks up, anyone that uses their voice, like what YouTube allows us to do as regular everyday people, anybody
Mm-hmm.
who um, dares to speak up should be applauded. Like there's a lot of people who are afraid, basically. And I feel like in 2026, that's the biggest problem in our community, in our communities, is that people don't want to use their voice, and people are afraid. You know what I mean? And Jesse Jackson wasn't afraid. So just the fact that he spoke up and you know, he demanded equality and justice and everything. I feel like he's an American icon. And a lot of people would say, you know, they'll throw dirt on his name. But what I told somebody earlier today is that that's the older Jesse Jackson. Like, you have to judge people for their prime years. So I feel like Jesse Jackson was a great activist. Yeah, you know, you can say this and that, but for the most part, when you look at the big picture, he was a phenomenal person, and he showed that somebody who looks like us could run for president, and not just run, but actually be taken serious. And when you
Right.
look at the whole situation of him running for president, he was winning up until the third stop, which was, I think it was New Hampshire was the first stop, Iowa, and then he went to South Carolina, and he kind of said a few things and, you know, turned off the voters. But for the most part, Jesse Jackson was a smart man, and you know, I want to just say condolences to his family, and I feel that it's up for us to uphold these figures. We can't rely on the other side to uphold these icons, these American icons. It's up for us as the people to determine how high we judge these people in the future, as such as the MLK and Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and everything like that. So, was he perfect? No, he wasn't perfect, but I feel that he did a lot for America. So, that's my take on Jesse Jackson and how he will be remembered. And with that said, guys, we're gonna go ahead and close this video out. We got about 40 seconds. I want to thank you, Aaron, for coming out and being patient. And thanks again, Tyler, for coming out. And happy Black History Month, everybody. And we're going to see you in the next video. We out.
Appreciate it.
Peace and
Peace.
love.
Yep.